All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Adventures by the Book monthly book club discussion with our fabulous ambassadors. And if you'll excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so my voice is a little scratchy, and I'm going to try not to talk too long. But we're really excited you are here to celebrate Rebecca Rosenberg and the launch of Silver Echoes. And I'm going to let Debbie and Marilyn introduce her in a minute. But I want to thank our ambassadors. We have 6 ambassadors around the United States and in Canada, and we alternate every month, 2 of them who moderate our book club discussions, and they pick an author out of our Adventures by the Book roster that they're really excited about. And Marilyn and Debbie picked Rebecca and her book. And so they're going to be the moderators for today. I will be in the background resting my voice and taking pictures. And we've got a really amazing afternoon planned for you. But first, before they introduce her, we have to make her stand up and give the fashion show because Rebecca Rosenberg knows how to bring it to an event. Look at this outfit, everybody.
Yes.
Is this amazing? And the shoes, show us the shoes. I love the shimmy.
And the story.
These are cowboy boots because
Yes.
Silver Dollar was a cowgirl first before she was a 1920s, roaring 20s showgirl.
And
So I've got the whole shebang here.
we love the stole. And also, we sent you cocktail recipes that Rebecca provided to us. I don't know if any of you decided to indulge, but Rebecca, show us what you're drinking today.
Okay, I have what is called a Hugo Spritz. And the reason I love this is this bottle, which is Saint Germain from France, is the prettiest bottle that I've ever seen. And this is from elderflower. And you put a little bit of this with sparkling water and sparkling wine, and it's really delicious. And I just discovered it on vacation. So cheers.
Cheers.
I
And
did get into cocktails. I really understood cocktails when I was writing this book. So it was very appropriate to use that in this book.
Can you hold that drink up a second so I can grab a screenshot because my last one turned blurry? Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to let Marilyn and Debbie Stone take it away from here. Thank you, ladies.
Well, welcome everybody to award-winning author Rebecca Rosenberg's launch of Silver Echoes. Rebecca Rosenberg is a champagne geek, lavender farmer, and multi-award-winning and best-selling author of several historical novels about extraordinary women. Her novels include the Gold Digger series and Champagne Widow series, celebrate the strength and spirit of women who dared to defy convention. Growing up in Denver, Colorado, she was captivated by the story of Baby Doe Tabor, a woman whose life mirrored the boom and bust of the Wild West, and her daughter, Silver Dollar, the subject of this latest novel, Silver Echoes. When not writing, Rebecca can be found sipping champagne, stomping grapes, or exploring ghost towns. Take it away, Rebecca.
Well, thank you. Hey, Denise, are you from Colorado? You're wagging your head. No, you're not. But you know about we're going to have a chance to chat later, but I can't hear you since we're muting everybody. But I'm going to go through a couple of slides to give you a background about Silver Dollar. What is so cool about this series is Gold Digger is about a real woman, Baby Doe Tabor, who's really quite famous. And really famous in the whole country because she came west following her husband to open a gold mine, and she ended up working that gold mine alone in 1878. And she was pregnant and working it alone in Colorado. And she turned out to be the most richest and most scandalous woman in the country because she fell in love with a man twice her age who was a U.S. senator and who happened to have hundreds of silver mines. And he divorced his wife and married her. And they had 2 adorable girls, and one of them was Silver Dollar Tabor. So since I grew up in Colorado, I was so curious about these two women. In my first book, Gold Digger, that is Baby Doe's story, and I encourage you to pick that up. That one I would say is rated G, but Silver Echoes, to be honest, is nothing for the faint of heart. It is R, solidly R. There are things that I could not leave out because they're true. And so you'll see that it's a little spicier than most of my other novels. So pick up Gold Digger first, but they don't really have to be read together because the stories are totally separate. So I'm going to jump into the slideshow here, and we are monitoring the chat. Here we go. And how did I do this before? Here we go, slideshow.
There it is.
Under slideshow, where it says slideshow in the middle,
Yeah.
at the top bar, the fourth from the left. There you go, and then
Yeah.
you hit start, and it should go full screen for you. Slideshow from beginning all the way over left. Yeah, where it says from beginning. There.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get it on show. All the way over left, the left desk from beginning. There you go. That
Still
should
not
do
going
it.
full screen though.
Yeah, you might need to hit from current slide, resume slideshow, hit resume. There you go. Because you started it before. You're on mute, Rebecca.
Rebecca.
You're still on mute. Rebecca, you're still on mute. Go back a slide. And then unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
You're back.
All right. So now I am, whoops. How do I go backwards, Debbie?
You arrow back. You should have an arrow down at the bottom of your controls for the slides. You should be able to just go back one. Yep, there you go. There you go.
Wow. Okay. Sorry for the slow start.
No worries.
Okay. This is a real picture of the most beautiful silver dollar tabor. And her full name is Rosemary Echo Silver Dollar Tabor. And here she is in all her burlesque glory. And you look at this beautiful woman with her background and you wonder, how did she end up being murdered in Chicago, actually scalded to death? And that is the mystery of the entire book. In fact, on the front of the book, it says, "What really happened to Rosemary Echo Silver Dollar Tabor?" That was her actual name. So I wanted you to see this gorgeous picture of her and try and understand how she ended up murdered. Or did she? So here is a picture of Baby Doe Tabor, her mother, and Silver Dollar Tabor. And what I love is, wow, look at that resemblance. They look so much like each other. And when Silver Dollar was born, her parents were really some of the richest people in the country, with her father as a U.S. Senator. In fact, Baby Doe was married to Horace Tabor in the White House with the president in attendance. So they were the top echelon of the country at the time. And remember, they didn't have the internet or all the gossip rags and all this to tell everybody that he had just divorced his wife to marry this beautiful woman. And she was considered very beautiful at the time. She had beautiful blonde hair and big eyes. And look at Silver Dollar. She looks just like her. So Silver Dollar was born into incredible wealth. They lived in mansions. And I have to tell you a really quick story. I hired a historian when I first was researching Gold Digger. And I was on Sherman, we were on Sherman Street in Denver. And I had my husband with me, and I pointed over there to an apartment complex. I said, that's where I lived in between years of college. And the historian said, that is where Baby Doe Tabor's mansion was. And I just got, whoa, chills, because I lived there for 3 months. And I don't know when it hit me that I had to write about her, but it took me a long time to write about her. And that was amazing that I lived in her house. So the Tabors owned hundreds of mines, as I told you, and also a whole theater circuit. This is their biggest theater, which was downtown Denver, gorgeous theater. And they brought in Broadway stars and Oscar Wilde and also the Sarah Bernhardt, like all the stars of the day, Lily Langtry. And so that is who they hung out with, because the socialites of Denver shunned them because he had divorced his wife. They also had a theater circuit. This is the Opera House in Leadville, Colorado. And I'm speaking there this summer, so that'll be fun. And this is a picture of the inside. So all the theaters were extremely opulent. I don't know how that changed, but so the Tabors, when Silver Dollar was 5 years old in let me get this right, 1993,
Not
all the
19.
silver mines were shut down because they demonetized silver. Before that time, we had a bi-monetary system of gold and silver, but it was a big political fight, the War of Wealth, and they chose to make silver non-monetized. And what happened to all the silver mines? They shut immediately, and the Tabors lost every penny. And where did they have to go? This is this is the only mine that they were able to save, and this is called the Matchless Mine. You can still see this in Colorado. And this is the mine part. And then this is the little cabin that they lived in. So what happened was Horace Tabor died, and he left his widow destitute, and her older daughter Lily ran away and was not going to live in this mine. So she took poor little Silver Dollar at 5 years old, and they lived in this tiny cabin to the left there. And it's a one-room cabin. Whoops, I thought I had a picture of it to show you, but I don't. So the inside, which I have seen, is just tiny and desolate. And you take a 5-year-old up there that's used to being a rich girl, and now she lives in the mountains away from everything with no children at all. And her father has died, and her sister abandoned them. And so it was extremely troubling for this young girl. And she kind of had a little psychic break, a little bit, and she created a secret friend whose name is Echo. And now you can see why it's called Silver Echoes. So she had Echo to keep her company, and it was the only person that she had, the only friend she had, living in this cabin way up in the mountains. And her mother knew about it, but what was she going to do? So she had this secret friend. But then as she got older, she was an extremely talented girl. She was writing novels. This is her Star of Blood, which is really dark and exciting, and it's romantic, and Star of Blood. And her mother would do anything for her, and she got this published, and she tried to sell it and tried to get it published by publishers, and to no avail. But she wrote it, and she wrote screenplays, and she wrote plays, and she wrote songs. So she was quite talented. In fact, she wrote a song to sing to Teddy Roosevelt, and this is Silver Dollar Tabor singing her song about Teddy Roosevelt to him in Denver. So then she thought she would try her hand at being a showgirl and an actress. So this is Silver Dollar in that era. And she actually got a job as an actress in Denver, if you can believe it, because there was no Hollywood until after World War I. So she wanted to be an actress. And to be an actress, she had these little bit parts, but she wanted to be bigger than that. So she came up with this wild stunt. And this is how I opened the book, because to me, this stunt that she did really typifies who she was as a person. She would do anything to regain. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog, he's having a fit out there, but she would do anything to regain that Tabor glamour, the Tabor name, the Tabor fame and wealth. And what did she do but this stunt called Slide for Life? And that is an iron mouthpiece in her mouth. And she slid across a whole high wire across a lake. And she did that to get notoriety. But she did not know how to swim. And it stops halfway. And she is hanging there like a pendulum, wondering what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, her jaw cannot take it. And she lets go and she plunges into the water to drown. And in that moment, her friend, her old secret friend, Silver Echoes, reclaims her. And I'll tell you how I found out about this. So besides that, she gets rescued. Whoops, that's funny. It keeps like changing itself. Okay. So she is rescued from drowning by her boyfriend who works for the same film company that she does. He's a scriptwriter. Carl is his name. And she is devastated by she stays with a family friend. I don't know how much to tell you because it's a spoiler. She stays with the family friend and a terrible attack happens. And so this echo takes over her personality and she leaves her mother, Baby Doe, at the Matchless Mine, and they were very close, you can imagine. By now, she's 24 years old. So for 20 years, she's lived with her mother alone in this little cabin. And this is the real Baby Doe coming out. So she went from being totally glamorous to totally not glamorous. She leaves her and she goes to Chicago to reinvent herself. So she joins the Orpheum Theater circuit because remember, her family was always in theater. And so that was very comfortable for her. And she was going to be a star. And she really joined that whole Midwest Orpheum circuit. And she became a showgirl. And she went by Echo, not by Silver Dollar. And that is a true story. In fact, the reality is that she went by 20 different names. I just didn't want to put that in the book, but she went by many, many different personas and she became a showgirl with the best of them. And so you'll get to hear a little bit about vaudeville in the 20s and also burlesque. And there was kind of a very slim line between burlesque and vaudeville and all the different acts they did. But she was very traumatized by Echo, and Echo and Silver began to fight, if you can imagine that. And it's a multiple personality, or what they call dissociative identity disorder. And so she went to find her old friend Carl, and he was working at the biggest movie studio in Chicago. And actually it was the biggest in the whole country. And she met up with Carl, and Carl heard her stories and said, we should write a movie about your life, about your parents' life. It was so phenomenal. And so they actually started writing that story. Meanwhile, he got her a job taking care of the wild animals because Selig Polyscope, that big studio, made all these exotic films, and they had a whole zoo of exotic animals. And so she was in charge of the tigers. And she was very afraid at first, but you'll see in the book that she trains herself to handle them. But then Carl was taken away to World War I, and the studio was closed. And so she had to find work at the speakeasies. And since the studio was closed, the tigers were bought by the Chicago Mafia. And they had these beautiful speakeasies. And by the way, Susan, this is a San Diego speakeasy. This picture is so beautiful. So she came up with a
Me too.
What was that?
We
Debbie?
both have been there.
Yeah,
You
we've
have?
been there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was not Chicago. It's the prettiest speakeasy I ever saw. So, so she came up with an act with the tigers, and she grew to just love the tigers. And she would have these acts, and she was the top billing act in all of Chicago. She just loved her tigers. And she became the flapper of the era, a top billing actress. But along with that came the mafia, and this is Diamond Jim Colosimo. And this is actually his girl, even though she looks a lot like Silver Dollar, this is his girlfriend, Dale Winter, who's in the book as well. So Diamond Jim owned many of these speakeasies that she performed in, and all was, the whole prohibition thing was quite violent and quite scary and quite mysterious. So now you're heavy into the 20s, and she's fighting her alter ego. Silver and Echo are fighting, and she's running into these dangerous men, and her boyfriend Carl has gone to war, and so she doesn't have him. So meanwhile, this is a dual timeline novel. So you keep getting letters back and forth between Baby Doe and Silver Echo, Silver Dollar. And these are true. And this is where I got the whole story, is I have access to all those letters. And so this is where Baby Doe is still trying to bring the mine around. And her husband once told her that the matchless mine would make millions again, and she believes him. And if you read the first book, Gold Digger, it ends on a cliffhanger where Horace Tabor has hidden something in the mine. And that comes out in this book. What did he hide in the mine, and what did he mean that it would make millions again? And can she get it going? So Baby Doe is in 1932, which is 7 years after Silver Dollar was doing her thing in Chicago. And who should arrive on her doorstep but Carl Erickson, who is the screenwriter who Silver Dollar loved, and he loved her. And he is very sad, very upset because Silver Dollar has died, and no one can find the murderer, although he knows she was murdered. And so together, Baby Doe and Carl try to figure this out. And I've been told their relationship is very touching and very interesting. And so, meanwhile, he has written the Silver Dollar movie for Warner Brothers, and it actually comes out. Can you believe that? And this is the crowd there waiting to see it. And that, my dears, is all I'm going to tell you about that. But it's a real mystery. It's a real mystery about what happened to Silver Dollar, and what you think happened is not what happened.
So
And
we have one, thank you so much. That was just absolutely so beautifully presented, and really gives us a good rich background of Silver Dollar and Baby Doe. We do have one question from the chat related to that before we move forward. Are there any descendants alive today that you know of?
Yes, that's cool that you asked because I just had a chat with one of the Tabor families that still lives in Colorado. And but I was able to piece together that she's not related to Baby Doe. She's related to Maxie Tabor, who was Horace Tabor's son from his first wife. And I mean, that seems obvious to me because their name is Tabor. So if it's a Tabor, it has to be the boy, not the girls.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. So that was fun. That was fun. But yes, there are descendants. And also Lily, the sister of Silver Dollar, had children. But their name
Right.
would
Yeah.
be, yeah, their name would be Last, which is different.
Right. And we could talk about that one. It's really more connected in with the first book with Gold Digger as
Yes.
well. And then another question from the chat. Did you know you were going to write about Silver Dollar when you started writing about Baby Doe with Gold Digger?
No, but her story, if you Google Silver Dollar, you're going to just get a paragraph, and it's just going to say that she really had a horrible downfall and she was scalded to death in Chicago. That's all they say about her. And I know a lot more about her because being from Colorado and the digging up all the history and talking to the people who own the Tabor Opera House. I have an old book. I have two old books that were written back in 1930s that were about silver, and they told a whole different story and a more complete story. And so I thought she does not deserve this kind of treatment because she was incredibly talented, really super talented. And I left the mystery that Baby Doe always said that wasn't my daughter who was murdered. That was not my daughter. My daughter is in a convent. She told me, she wrote me that she was in the convent. And so I wanted to pursue that line of thinking.
And then another question, did Baby Doe keep any diaries?
Yes. And that's the whole first book in Gold Digger is based on her diary. She kept very lifelong diaries. And so I read all of those. I have a saint of a husband who helped me get them all copied at the Colorado History Museum. And so between those diaries and what she was saying about silver, she was very worried about silver. And I could see why, because I have all the letters Silver wrote her, and she wasn't really coming clean on stuff. And she, as I told you, she was having her mother write her letters to 20 different names. So why was that? No one, to be honest, no one has identified her as having a dissociative identity disorder. And why? Because it wasn't even identified then.
Yeah.
Like Freud, and I put that in the book, you'll have hints of that. Freud and Jung were just discovering that that existed. And so no one knew what to deal with, but Baby Doe is very upset. But you guys, a lot of you are mothers and fathers, and you know that you worry about your children and you can't really help everything that they are and that they do. They're living their own lives.
Thank you for answering that. Marilyn, did you have
Yeah, I had a couple
ahead.
of things, and I said to
Perfect.
Rebecca before we even started that when I first was reading it, I couldn't imagine that it was real, that this was about somebody that really existed. And I was thinking, what is this story? And then when I found out it was real, it's a whole different experience. I thought maybe you could talk about Chicago during that time because I was fascinated with what was going on in Chicago, race riots and the Ku Klux Klan and stuff that we don't think about.
I'm glad you said that, Marilyn, because I had an editor on this book who wanted me to cut all that stuff out.
Oh, no, because
You know,
I've lived in Chicago, so this,
yeah.
it brings it to life.
Yeah, so what Marilyn's talking about, and you'll get it in the book, is that the Ku Klux Klan was there, very strong, and that we had the whole migration north from the south of Black population, and Silver lived among them for real, because I looked at every address she was writing her mother from, and it was all Black neighborhoods. So she was right
Hmm.
in the Black neighborhoods because she wasn't earning good money until she got in with the gangsters, and that wasn't any good either because they put her up. You'll have to see where they put her up. They have a beautiful warehouse that it's like a secret clubhouse that they put her up in. But so she had Black friends for the first time, and they had these Black and brown clubs that white people and brown people and Black people could go and dance and have a good time. And she worked in those clubs. And so she really got a bird's eye view of that. And there were race riots, and there was famously a Black boy killed in a race riot, which I put in the book, at the beach. So I love
Mm.
bringing in those details of what was really happening because she really was right there. So why not?
No, I think it added a lot to the book. And I also was fascinated that you had the price of silver define your chapters. And I
Yeah,
thought, how did you know that? And how did that work, with the story
yeah. So I wanted first of all, their whole lives were based on the price of
of
silver.
silver?
Like for the whole time that they lived, it's like how much is the price of silver, and it went up and down and up and down so much that it was really controlled their lives. And even in the end, in the depression, like in 1932, when I'm talking about Baby Doe, it's the depression, but here's the next president, and he's banking on silver, and he's getting silver going again. So silver has always been a power play. And I just loved how that was kind of a something that controls your life that you really don't have any control over. The price of silver.
But Baby Doe still well, she was banking on it coming back. And,
He
this was
was, yeah.
really, yeah. And she stuck to it.
But
Even,
did you realize that, I think you realized that her mind was almost taken over by that Chicago mob?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have we have like one or two questions like in
Okay.
and of that, talking about her mind and like, so split personality, but there is really a great distinction. I don't know if you want to talk to it between DID and then maybe split personality, or what we would call like schizophrenia, um, perhaps, or even multi-personality syndrome. I think there's some other names that are given to it. DID is very different. And I wonder if you want to just address that issue, because there are a couple of questions on that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to show you to my understanding, and I did consult many psychologists on this, but the new PC term for split personality is DID. So and what it is that you're disassociating, and this is definitely what Silver did. You're disassociating from your reality that you can't handle, and another personality who can handle it takes over. And so that becomes the split personality. And so what I saw in Silver's letters is she just kept changing and changing and changing, trying to cope with being a woman alone and not having the stability and not having the money and having to deal with her. What she was really trying to do is bring back the glamour and pizzazz of her parents, and she wasn't able to do it. So my understanding is that DID is the new split personality.
Okay, and then there's another question about whether there's any evidence that Baby Doe had correspondence with Silver after her death to be convinced that she was alive. Like, how did that? It's an interesting.
No, there's no evidence, but it was this unwavering belief. And if you read the book, you'll see that she changes her mind about whether Silver is alive. But I think at first she's just not going to put up with anyone telling her that her daughter's dead, and she just can't accept it. But then Carl explains what kind of life she was living. And it's really sad because Carl really loved her. And by the way, Carl Erickson really is the writer of this Silver Dollar movie. And you can look up on Google and on YouTube and see the Silver Dollar movie, which is about their family, not about her. It's about Baby Doe and Horace Tabor. And it has BB Daniels and, oh, what is the man's name? Having a block against his name. But it's a big movie, so look that up.
At this time, what Susan would like, since we're about 20 minutes out, is like for maybe people to raise up their hands or let us know they have a question, and then maybe unmute so it's a little bit more interactive rather than me asking all of the questions via theirs. I think during the chat it was really important, but at this point it's really important to make sure that everybody has their voice if they would like to interact with you. So I'd love for them to
unmute.
Yeah, like like you can use the React. You could put your hand up, and then I could call on you, and you could just then unmute. Or Marilyn, you can, however you want me to do it.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and Debbie and Marilyn, you guys are doing an amazing job. I just thought maybe if anybody wanted to ask their own questions, feel free. I know Marissa.
I'd love to hear questions. How many have read the book? I
don't see
Carol,
hands.
librarian.
Yeah, there.
Carol, we can't see you.
Yeah, maybe use your reaction. Like down on the bottom is a React. You could put your hand up, and she asks like a question, or if you have a question, you can use that React, or just do your physical hand. If
Carrie says I'm halfway there. Does that, Carrie? Do you mean you?
No, Denise said she's halfway there.
Through the book.
Said she's halfway. Okay. Denise said she's halfway there.
Okay.
Got it.
Well, I'll let you take over, Debbie. I don't know.
That's okay. Marissa, did you want me to ask your question, or did you want to ask your question? I don't see her unmuting. So Marissa wanted to know, like, if anything, do you have in what, if anything, do you have in common with Silver Dollar or Echo? Do you see yourself in parts of her, or what maybe inspired you to really do their stories?
Oh, that's a heavy duty question.
Well, there we go. Break it apart as best you want.
Yeah. I do not think that I have anything in common with her, but I feel for her because she had such a huge family legacy. Her parents were so famous and so rich and so wonderful, and here she is stuck in this cabin. And I have been in that cabin many, many times, and I just feel for this little girl who ends up in this cabin at 5 years old, and what happened to my rich life? And then she just invents someone. And I discovered, was so talented with poetry and writing and all this stuff, but she had no money and no support. And so I feel for that, like a mother. I feel motherly towards her.
It's a great answer. Anyone else have questions they want? There's a couple of others. Then if nobody has any direct, I can't see if you do. I don't see hands up or anybody offering. So I'm going to go back to the chat. There's one other one in the chat. Did Silver continue working with the Tigers after the mafia or the mob bought them?
Yes, she does. You'll have to read all about that, but very harrowing. And she's very religious. Silver is
Yeah,
very religious too. And she allows religion to help her cope with Echo, which I think is really great. Now, you know, you asked if I had things in common. Not at all. And I just find it so interesting to explore someone's vulnerability where they really become two personalities or even more, and how did they deal? And I could see where, and people who have read it and reviewed it really feel that Echo was trying to help her, but Echo was also her own crazy person. So it was hard.
I was going to bring up the church as
Yeah.
a theme because it was so surprising. You'd go along and here's Silver doing what she's doing. Then all of a sudden, she needed that quiet. She needed to get
Yes.
away, and the church gave her that.
Yes.
And it was just really an interesting underlying theme that stayed the whole book.
Yeah. And she and her mother, Baby Doe, was very religious as well. Baby Doe was Catholic, so she taught her daughter to be Catholic. And actually, Colorado at that time was totally Protestant, and she was not looked looked upon well for being Catholic at the time. So I think that that's very important. And they both had rosaries. You know, her mother gave her a rosary that was very sweet. And then after she's dead, that's what convinces Baby Doe that she's dead, is when Carl gives her
Yeah, the
the
rose.
rosary, and it's very touching. And that is like, oh my God. So that's why the relationship between Carl and Silver Dollar and Carl and Baby Doe is very touching because he knew them both and he could bridge that gap. Any other questions?
Another question from the chat. Do you know which convent or where it was or anything more detailed about the
Yes.
convent?
Yes. And it's in the book. It's Holy Sepulchre. And I know that because that's where she was buried. She's still, her gravestone is there. But I'm telling you, there are lots of twists and turns that you don't know yet, and I'm not going to tell you.
Do you know what happened to Lily?
Yes, Lily, I really dislike Lily. That she just abandoned them, you know, when they moved to the little cabin, she just went to relatives, and she actually went to her aunt and uncle, and she married her cousin. And that's a true story. Like in this, like Marilyn said, you won't believe this is real
It
when you
can't
read
be
it.
real. Yeah.
And it's real. Like that, I showed you the slide for life. She actually did that. And it
Yeah.
hurt her jaw and her teeth for her whole life.
You
It
can see
hurt
why.
reading.
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
hurt reading about it. Like
I
it.
know.
Like, are you kidding?
Can you
Marriage.
imagine fighting this
No,
thing?
no, not at all. So how old was Lily when she ran away? Like after, like it's at the end of, well, it's after Gold Digger
I'd
that we
have to
find
do the
out, but
math here, but I think she's
yeah,
3 years older. She's like 3 years
yeah,
older.
yeah.
Or maybe, so she's 5. I think she might be 5 years older, so 10. But she
I
went to
thought
live
she
with
was
her
about
aunt
10. Yeah,
and uncle. She
yeah.
said, I'm not
That's what
going to do
bothered.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, also, they didn't go right away. So she probably left when she was a teenager. But they didn't go right away to that mine. They were trying to hang out in Denver, but they had no money. So, you know, it's really tough to. So I also have great empathy and pride for Baby Doe because she could have been a floozy. She was, remember, she was half Horace Tabor's age, and she could have had any man. She was like 40 when he died. She could have had any man, and she did not. She turned very religious, extremely religious at the end. So
And then we have another one. I
yes.
guess people don't want to unmute. They would like me to be reading their questions. So I'm going to continue that. We have a comment that I love reading and learning about these women in history that you write about. I appreciate you enlightening us about them, from Champagne Wives to Baby Doe and Silver Dollar. How do these types of stories come to speak to you?
I find out about these women who've done extraordinary things. And this one was different because they didn't necessarily, like Silver Dollar, didn't necessarily live on in history as an extraordinary woman. But I felt she was a forgotten woman of the time. There were plenty of these showgirls in that era, who are forgotten women. And I bring them to life in the book, and their experiences with the mob and with men and with all the turmoil of that time. Like we talked about the Ku Klux Klan and the Black immigration. There are good things too, like jazz was a big thing. And so I wanted to bring that to life. And my next book, because we're going to get to that.
Yep.
Well, that's good, because that's the next question,
Next
is what will be
cool.
the next adventure for you? That was
Okay. Well, I'm almost done with it actually, but it'll come out probably March of next year. And that is part of the Champagne Widows series, which is Veuve Clicquot. Thank you, Denise. And Madame Pommery. And this one, this is the new cover. You're the first people to see it.
All right.
This is
Bubblies abound.
yes, this is License to Thrill, and she is savoring that champagne bottle, and that is Lily Bollinger. So I'm almost done with that. When I say almost done, that means six months.
That's fabulous.
Any questions about writing or anything in general? Love those first two books. Thank you, Denise.
And beautiful cover. And it doesn't look like anybody wants to unmute unless you do now.
Well, we are going to do a drawing from anyone who responded on this beautiful chat. So ask your questions, ask away. I love being here with you. There she is.
I'll ask.
Yes, Dorothy.
Well, have you heard something really interesting from a reader that you kind of surprised you?
Actually, are you talking about on Silver Echoes?
Or any of your
Oh,
books?
I always hear surprising things.
Yeah.
But Silver Echoes, I have learned now that readers seem to want author's notes, which I never did before. And it's kind of hard because when you're writing historical fiction, where does fact end and fiction start? But this book, I felt strongly that it needed some author's notes. So I did a whole thing about what was real and what wasn't real. It's mostly real, but also about dissociative identity disorder. And also people often, if they're writing a review, they'll say, well, she got World War I soldiers coming back wrong. But I didn't, because, it's like facts, people don't know all the facts. Like it took them till 1920 to get all the soldiers back. 1920? Yeah, 1920.
A little bit later,
And people think that it was like 1919. So the war ends, but it takes a long time to get all the soldiers back. So I always hear a lot of things like that. But what are you thinking, Dorothy? Like what kinds of things are you thinking?
No, I just wondered sometimes, when we have meetings like this, people ask really surprising questions. But another thing, what's your writing process? Do you get up early in the morning and write, or is it
I have to
a
get up
structure?
early in the morning and just get into my character before other reality hits. So yeah, I get up at like 5 or sometimes 4 and just get into, this is my office right here. And I love it because I'm looking out on vineyards right behind you guys. I'm looking out on vineyards. So that inspires me with the Champagne Widows series. but you have to get in their heads, and they're very different, especially like Silver, and to create two personalities. Dorothy, have you read the book yet?
I haven't. I have to get it. Yes.
Oh my goodness, like to the two personalities and why they are fighting each other, that's a whole different trip.
I don't want to
Denise,
dominate, but I have one
yeah,
more thing. Then
okay.
from what you just said, how do you say goodbye to those characters? When you say this is
It's
it,
really
I'm
weird.
finished.
I'll be honest with you that when I'm done writing this, it's 30 times I've already
Mhm.
worked it, and you know that you can't keep working it because it's gonna not be good. It needs to have that initial passion. And by the time I'm done, I'm really done with them. I really am. I'm like, okay, I'm like so over this now.
Thank
I
you.
love talking about them with you guys, and I love
Yeah.
hearing about, what do you think about that? But we all grew up with stories about multiple personalities. And so we haven't heard too much about it, but boy, this book, I got a bunch of books, but this was the one that I like, Coping with Trauma-Related Disassociation. So think about that. In a way, we all do this, right? We have a trauma in our lives, and I do it. I disassociate from that trauma and go work out, or I go take a walk, or I go pet my dog, or something like that. But this is extreme. Like if they can't handle it, they're going to do something big.
Do you think we should do the drawing?
Yeah, I think we only have a few minutes left, and we want to be respectful of Rebecca's deadline. So you've got to be present to win. And before we go to the drawing, I just want to thank all of you for attending today. Thank you, Rebecca, for celebrating the launch of Silver Echoes with us. And she's just getting ready to head off to her big launch in-person event, but we were glad you stopped by to celebrate virtually with us. Thank you to Marilyn and Debbie, who, by the way, did an amazing job with today's event. And thank you both for that. Thank you all for your interactive comments and for being here today and supporting our author and our program.
37 people. How did we get so many?
If anybody wants to schedule a book club or a library visit with Rebecca, I'm going to post that on I'm going to post it in the chat box, the link. You can go there and get more information about doing that. It's a really great way to interact with her more intimately. She'll answer all your questions and any slides and maybe she'll even wear an amazing outfit like that again for you. And you can make your own cocktails and really have a great book club meeting. So thank you all. Our next Adventure by the Book Club will be on July 9th with Howard J. Smith. Our next in-person event will be in San Diego. We have 3 back-to-back events with New York Times bestselling author and Friends and Fiction author Kristen Harmel. So there's only 10 tickets left to our in-person French crepes adventure, which will be hosted at Christina McMorris's family home, which is going to be amazing. So we hope you all join us there. But again, thank you all. And we'll leave it to Rebecca and our ambassadors to close it out with the drawing.
Do we do that? Who's going to choose is it going to be
Well, it's got to be somebody who's present. So I'm going to go through that list. And why don't you just give me a number, Rebecca, and I'm going to count through my list and get to that number.
Okay.
That person.
18.
18. All right.
That's lucky. That's a lucky number.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Denise Ongarato. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it.
Denise, you've been very good.
Congratulations, Denise.
I'm gonna be sending you a really cute tiger cosmetic kit and all sorts of goodies inside. And so thank you, Denise, for coming. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It really does warm my heart. You don't do this for 2 years for nothing. So it's nice to get some feedback. I hope you enjoyed the book. And also, we did mention that if you get the book from Adventures by the Book, then you get a a beautiful satin sleep mask a la 1920s.
Definitely, while supplies last. So
Yeah.
order your copy and get a fabulous face mask with it. And Rebecca, congratulations again. Go have a fabulous launch. And
thank you, everybody. It was great to see you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Leslie.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
attending.
Thank
We'll see
you,
you
Marilyn.
soon.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.